must ride the ragged edge. And that can result in victory or disaster. To the winner go the spoils in IndyCar racing. And that's the reason drivers always put themselves and their car. While all are very aware of the possible consequences, fear cannot be a factor. There is no room for apprehension or for error. The quest for the checkered flag often runs astray. Two men who have avoided most of the obstacles are Michael Andretti and Bobby Rahal. One of those two men will leave this track today as the champion. Michael's season started slowly. He didn't finish the first two races. But he recovered to win a kart record 7 races and now sits in the driver's seat on the road to his first PPG championship. Bobby has won 2 PPG Cups and trails Michael by just 13 points. He has used a blend of tenacity and consistency to stay in the hunt, and he comes here with the quiet calm of a proven winner. The drivers have prepared themselves mentally, and their mechanics have prepared their cars diligently, for the chariot is as important as the man who drives it in this sport. Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal. The battle for the championship at the Champion Spark Plug 300. ESPN, the world's leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. Laguna Seca Raceway, 2.2 miles, 11 turns, over 300 feet in elevation changes, and the site of the final race of the IndyCar season, the battle for the championship. Hello and welcome to Laguna Seca. I'm Paul Page. We've raced thus far 3,578 miles, and despite all that battling, all of that racing, it comes down to today. A fight between two men for the championship. Consider the point standing as we come into this race. Michael Andretti leads the points. He has merely to finish 6th or better if he wants to walk away from here with his first championship. For Bobby Rahal, it's a little more challenging. He must win here if he is to score his 3rd PPG Cup. Now consider the racetrack itself. Laguna Seca is wide open. The walls are set well back. Here, strange things are commonplace. Consider, for example, merely back to yesterday, the final lap of the Marlboro Challenge. For Michael Andretti, so close, but really so far. That interval is so difficult to make up. Still, Michael has done it in the past. Can he do it again? As once again, the last pass up the hill now. They make that left-hand turn and continue their climb. Almost 300 feet in elevation difference between the bottom of the course and up here at the top, and Michael Andretti is very definitely closing in. The blind corner just ahead. There's the corkscrew. Michael slaps it down the hill. He continues to try and catch Rick Mears. It's going to be very, very close. The crews look to see them come out from under this bridge, and there they see Rick Mears still has the lead, but Michael is still closing in. The Marlboro Challenge about to be decided in Laguna Seca, and for Rick Mears, $445,000 if he can just hold on. He climbs on the pit straight. He's out of fuel. He slows down. Michael Andretti comes around him, and Michael Andretti on the last straightaway picks up the race, the checkered flag, and the lead. What could possibly have happened to Rick Mears? A missed gear, a faltered fuel, who knows what it is?
My word, give me a minute here to catch my breath and try and feel my heart here. I can't believe, look at the dejection on Roger Penske's face. I can only think it must have been a missed gear.
Look again here, this is the last corner of the race.
Now Rick actually accelerates, then he slows. Look at Michael, almost hits him. Those rear wheels slide sideways. Then Rick gets it back in gear. Look what happens, leaves black streaks. I think it was a gearbox problem.
And it cost Rick Mears $255,000. How did it look to Michael? Let's remember, as he was coming down the hill, he's pretty well assuming that, well, he's going to go right on through and just win the race.
Now Michael has got his gear chosen. Once he gets on the power, now Rick is stalled. Boom! Swerves out to the inside, misses him, and picks up an extra $105,000 in about, what, second and a half?
Oh, not long at all. That little 1-second hiccup cost Rick Mears $225,000, but it gave Michael Andretti a surge of elation coming into today's race. Now for strange things again, and considering that Ray Hall and Andretti are definitely enemies on the racetrack, let's go back to the start of yesterday's race. As the 10-car field came off the final turn, they were well allied coming up to the green flag. Michael Andretti took the green flag. A battle began at the front with Emerson Fittipaldi and Rick Mears. As they headed through the first turn, they continued to fight one another, then down into the hairpin that is the second turn here at Laguna Seca, continuing to run very, very close together. Coming off at turn 3, they touched. Ray Hall and Michael Andretti touched. Michael almost lost control, and that is what Michael is most afraid of here today. Merely a 6th place will put him in a championship, but any mistake could put him totally out of the running. Now, let's go down to the starting grid and join my friend Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, for Bobby Rahal, who now sits in the cockpit and patiently waits, his season has been one of marked contrast as opposed to Michael Andretti. While Andretti has slashed through the record book with his 7 wins and 8 poles, Rahal has been a modicum of consistency. He's had but 1 win, but 10 other times this year he's either been 2nd or 3rd. He and his crew maintain that despite the fact that they're down 13 points, despite the fact that Michael won yesterday in the Marlboro Challenge, the pressure is squarely on Andretti. It's his championship to lose, Rahal's to gain. Rahal has won here at Laguna 4 times in the past. He and his crew think that they've got a car that will be competitive today that will keep that pressure on Andretti. Bobby Rahal, as you look ahead, any final words or thoughts as you await the start engines?
Well, no, just I guess it's been a long year, and I'm looking forward to finishing it off on a high point for Maury Cranes and the Craco group. And you know, the car, we had a good morning practice session, so I'm confident of our chances. But as we've said, we're gonna have to do an awful lot, and a lot of things happen for us to win this championship. So we're just gonna go and try to win the race.
We're about to find out how it'll shake out. Let's go back up to Paul Page.
And so, Derek Daly, Bobby Rahal goes into this race with the knowledge that he already has 2 championships in the record book. But what about Michael Andretti? He comes here facing some unusual circumstances.
Well, that's right. All year, Michael has had to go flat out and play catch-up, really. But as you can see from the graph, he's an all-or-nothing driver. He doesn't score points often, but when he does, he scores big. What does he do today? Change his style, become conservative, or go flat out like he normally does and risk possible mechanical failure or even flying off the road? Well, I spoke to Michael right after the warm-up, and he said yes, he will have to change, become a bit more conservative. But as Dad said, when you become conservative, you can lose concentration, and that's what puts you in the danger zone. So an unusual set of circumstances for Michael.
So the focus on the championship before this giant record crowd here at Laguna Seca. And the moment that they have waited for is about to arrive. We go down to the starting grid for the start of the engines.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
There are 27 Indy cars at the bottom of the hill that is the pit straight, ready to go racing at Laguna Seca. Will this man come away this day as a champion, or will it be Bobby Rahal? Twice before, of course, Rahal has been in this position and taken the championship. 3 times Michael has been in 2nd place when the points were counted. Rick Mears, remember his victory here just 2 years ago. It should be a most fascinating afternoon. The run for the race itself, and additionally, the run for the championship, all to be decided here at Laguna Seca.
Imagination and what the mind goes through is a great thing inside the driver's helmet right now. They replay or play in their mind their first corner, their first lap. I'll try and go on the outside. If I don't make the outside, I'll try the inside. They go through this ritual of imagining what the set of circumstances are going to be when they get to the first corner.
Guard official Billy Camphausen waves the field off as they begin to roll. So the field is now out and rolling on the course at Laguna Seca. The roar of the engines here at the racetrack itself against the placid tranquility of Monterey, California, just a few miles away on the edge of the Pacific. Onboard camera view. views over John Andretti's shoulder here today at Laguna Seca. One man who was taught at the driving school, the Russell School here at Laguna Seca, wrapped up an Indy Lights championship, knows this track very well. That's Jan Vikas. Jan?
Well, Paul, on the pace lap is when those thoughts come into the driver's mind as to what could go wrong during this race. This has to be especially true of Michael Andretti, who's thinking about his misfortunes this season, some of which were bizarre. Remember when he was at Long Beach, he came screaming out of the pits and slammed into Emerson Fittipaldi flying through the air? But what about Detroit? Came around a blind corner and found a parked vehicle and slammed into that. But right now is when Michael Andretti is trying to put those thoughts aside. The only thought he wants to be there is, I want to win my first PPG IndyCar title.
So much to consider for Michael Andretti as the field comes across the pit line the very first time around, and it gives us the opportunity to look at the starting field. The Sears starting grid is brought to you by the Die Hard battery, now with more power when you need it most. On the pole is Michael Andretti, who established a new track record in closing in on his first PPG Cup championship. Alongside is Rick Mears. His 1989 victory here at Laguna ended a 7-year void on road courses. He was the fastest in the morning practice. Inside the second row is Emerson Fittipaldi, making his 7th start here at Laguna Seca. Alongside is Bobby Rahal, who won 4 straight races on this course between 1984 and 87. The third row, Scott Pruitt, who finished 4th in this event 2 years ago. And Mario Andretti, who has notched 3 runner-up finishes on this challenging circuit. Inside the 4th row is Eddie Cheever, the 10-year Formula One veteran in his 2nd race on this circuit. Alongside is Al Unser Jr., the 1990 PPG Cup champion. The 5th row to the inside is Arie Luyendyk, the winner 2 weeks ago in that thriller at Nazareth. And John Andretti, who started the 91 season off with a victory in Australia. On the inside of the 6th row is Paul Tracy, making his 3rd IndyCar start for Roger Penske. And Cor Oeser, a 34-year-old Dutchman, making his debut in the IndyCars. In the 7th row, it's Scott Goodyear, the young driver out of Toronto, Canada. And Mike Brough, driving for the great A.J. Foyt. In the 8th row, Danny Sullivan, who led from start to finish in last year's event. And Ted Prappis, a rookie driver out of Los Angeles. In the 9th row, Scott Brayton, making his 5th start here at Laguna Seca. And Jeff Andretti, who has all but locked up the 1991 Rookie of the Year title. In the 10th row, it's Hiro Matsushita, a sophomore out of Kobe, Japan. And Willie T. Ribbs, enjoying a strong run after his race at Denver's road course in August. Inside the 11th row is Buddy Lazier from Colorado, another one of the 2nd-generation IndyCar drivers. And Roberto Guerrero. His best finish here was 4th in 1985. In the 12th row, Didier Tays, who came home 8th here 3 years ago. And Jeff Wood, who has notched 2 top 10 finishes in 3 starts here at Laguna Seca. In the 13th row is Tony Bettenhausen, the veteran 2nd-generation driver from Indianapolis, Indiana. And Randy Lewis, who began his IndyCar career on this course in 1983. And alone in the final row is John Jones, a former Rookie of the Year in the IndyCar. So there they are, a wonderfully full field here at Laguna Seca for the final race of the season. So much on the line for Rahal and Michael Andretti as we take a look at one of our many onboard camera views looking backwards from Bobby Rahal's car. But there is other things to consider here. For example, this is an opportunity for many drivers in this field, Derek, to show off, because it's a last opportunity to say to a potential sponsor, hey, I'm really good. You ought to consider me for next season. The race ahead is 84 laps. First fuel should come maybe 25 to 30 laps, depending on the yellows. Field separation 9.7 seconds.
Momentum is a great thing, and that's what the people want here, the drivers. They want to finish their season on a high note, because believe me, when negotiations start over the winter time, showing what you did for me, and racing, as you know, is what have you done for me lately business, a good showing here today can help negotiations in the winter time. Let's have a look at the track description here. It's 2.2 miles, a left-handed road course, tremendous elevation changes, and the highlighted area between turns 7 and 8 is the corkscrew, the most unique corner in all of racing. From there you go downhill like a roller coaster to turn 11, which is the slowest corner on the racetrack, taking at about 45 to 50 miles an hour.
Very challenging. Looks like it can be very fun to drive. Here's Michael Andretti just starting down that corkscrew behind the PPG pace car, Gordon John Cock at the wheel.
And you'll see from here, Paul, it goes down down, accelerating, gets faster and faster. One of the most exciting areas on this racetrack.
Again over John Andretti's shoulder as they come sweeping down through the final turns and begin to align for the start of this race. Michael Andretti, the pole sitter. Rick Mears just alongside. The 11th and final turn onto the pit straight. The green flag in Nick Venoro's hand lies just ahead. Already they begin to accelerate as they come off that final turn. And the green flag comes out. The final race of the season is underway at Laguna Seca. A battle for the race, a battle for the championship. And Michael Andretti shows his colors early as he jumps into the lead.
And Emerson slides into second place. Rick really did get caught napping on the outside of the front row and gave a huge advantage to Michael.
Already in the traffic, one car touches the edge of the track and therefore kicks dust up into the air. The look over Michael Andretti's shoulder. You saw a glimpse back from Bobby Rahall's quicker state on-board camera, but it is Michael who runs alone at the front of this field, and they begin to space out. Bobby Rahal is back in fourth place. He, of course, must move up if he wants to see a championship.
Michael said he would try and take the lead, but he wouldn't fight hard for it. He didn't have to do it. He was clear in the lead at turn 2 himself. Now, the Penske cars, second and third, were the fastest cars in the warm-up this morning. That's always a sign of the handling of these cars in race conditions. The Penskes are very good on full tanks.
A good, safe start. The rest of the field has strung out nicely now, but look at Michael as he slaps it up through the gears, coming down the hill for the first time, completing lap number 1 through turn 10 here with Emerson Fittipaldi close in pursuit. Rick Mears just behind Emerson Fittipaldi. They come along the pit straight once again, and Rahal begins now to move up to challenge Rick Mears in a battle for third place, while Fittipaldi is pressing Michael Andretti hard as they head through the first turn and down through number 2.
And he is pressing him. Look at Rahal. Remember, Rahal cannot let Michael get too far away because he has to finish ahead of Michael, well ahead of him, if he's to try and hold on or win this championship.
The 9th time this year that Michael Andretti has led the opening lap of a race. What a magnificent season Michael has had. And can it culminate at the end of this day in a championship? Well, still many miles to be run. 84 laps of scheduled distance here. They've just completed the first lap as we watch in the Quaker State onboard camera. And you see as they begin to swoop up this hill.
And this is a very fast 5th gear corner here, 110 miles an hour. Now look at the steep rise here. Up they go to top gear, 160 miles an hour. And here's the corkscrew.
Fittipaldi now pressing Michael Andretti very closely for the lead, while at the same time Rahal is pressing Rick Mears back in 3rd and 4th place. So 2 fights at the front of the field. The rest of the field, for the most part, has strung out, and you can see that Michael Andretti, in his battle with Fittipaldi, has begun to create some separation between that battle from 3rd place.
Michael told me his conservative approach to the race does not involve braking. He said he'll brake as late as ever, drive as aggressively in the corner, but he will watch the engine, possibly change. We see some blue tire smoke from somebody, but change gear earlier. That's Mario right ahead of Rahal there.
We've seen tire smoke in that second corner quite a bit throughout the weekend. Why is that?
Well, because
Scott Brayton.
No, we can't see what's wrong with Brayton here. We can't even see where he is actually on the racetrack. But tire smoke, there's such heavy braking into turn 2 here that you lock those front brakes quite easily. Now, Mario jumped ahead of Rahal, so that's probably where that tire smoke came from.
So there is Emerson Fittipaldi as he continues to chase Michael Andretti in the Texaco Haviland Lola. And Michael Andretti moves down through the corkscrew once again, working his 3rd lap of this race. We have a chance now to get just a glimpse of what may have happened to Scott Brayton as the leaders come sweeping down out of the hill, with some separation now developing between the fight for the lead between Fittipaldi and Michael and the fight for 3rd place, which is now between Rick Mears, Mario Andretti, but Bobby Rahal is still very much in that fight.
We just saw a brief glimpse of Scott Brayton. It was turn 11 where he stopped, and the marshals have actually backed him off the racetrack.
All right, what happened to Scott Brayton? Well, here it is. You see him back in the line about 5th. Car moved inside him, and they trapped him in the corner. That's turn 11.
Oh, whoa, Brayton almost went upside down, got interlocked with wheels there. Scott did turn in. Very lucky didn't get that car upside down. That's how open wheel cars get upside down. Wheels interlock and flips the other car.
And of course what we'll have to do is try and identify that other car, because because when you tap like that, it looks like a light little touch, but there's incredible energy involved in it. And so it could have caused damage not only to Brayton, but the car that he interlocked with. Back up the hill once again, Michael Andretti has led right from the green flag. Chasing him is Emerson Fittipaldi. Then Rick Mears, Mario Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Scott Pruitt, and Al Unser Jr. all running right together on the course. How this day will tell. It's going to be a fascinating afternoon to see how the tactics are played out here, especially for Michael Andretti. He is in the lead, but he doesn't truly need to be there. He needs only a 6th or better if he wants to win the championship. So in one way he could play it conservative, but on the other side, if he does, he might make mistakes. The Monterey Peninsula at Monterey Bay, one of the most beautiful areas in the world. And the racetrack at Laguna Seca is just a few miles inland, where right now you watch John Andretti, a most unique view in this Quaker State onboard camera, perched up right on the top of his windscreen, really, as he runs in 11th place. And take a look at this, Derek Daly. That piece of tape on the center of the wheel, that helps during a pit stop, doesn't it?
That's right. And what you can tell by these pictures is the incredible amount of steering movements these drivers put into the cars just to maintain total control. Another good point, see those black things on this helmet right below the Pennzoil? That's actually an air vent that takes air in, circulates it around the helmet to cool the driver down.
And what the tape does is tells him when the wheels are pointed straight as they come into the pits, so that it's easy to handle the changing of the front tires. Back at the fight now, we see one of the kart safety vehicles has pulled out onto the circuit, and we were yellow in turn 2 and 3. Scott Brayton is slowing down. There he is again. And
right front wheel, we can see the front suspension is broken on that car from that heavy impact, and he's not going to be able to make it all the way around himself.
Yeah, right rear as well. John Andretti just came inside. You saw him, the kart safety truck, as it maneuvered to try to catch up. Now Brayton is back under power, though it probably would be cheaper if he could just get it off the course, and the kart safety truck is trying to chase him around, and perhaps he'll get it back into the pits and they can effect repairs.
These cars are sprung so stiffly that they can actually run on 3 wheels, and we clearly saw Brayton there running with that right front wheel totally off the ground, yet he can still drive the car.
Michael Andretti at the front of the field. There is tremendous pressure on young Michael to win this year's championship. But being at this particular track, he says, puts him more at ease.
I think just when you're away from the track, I mean, that's all that's on your mind. But once you once I get at the racetrack, I'm a different person again, and I'm more in my environment, and you know, I don't really feel those pressures as much here as I do away from the track, because that's when you have time to think. You know, that's always the worst, when you have time to think.
Leading the most laps here at Laguna Seca is going to be critically important for Michael Andretti, especially in case he has trouble later. There's a single point for leading the most laps, and for Rahal to run first or second and have any hope for a title, Rahal really has to try to score the most laps. But right now, Bobby Rahal runs back in 5th place and is not challenging at the front of the field. You're looking back at Scott Pruitt, who is just behind Bobby Rahal in this Quaker State onboard camera view as, again, they climb up that hill. Love the elevation changes here.
Great elevation changes, and as the road rushes away from Rahal's car, that gives you a good idea. There's a great shot of the carousel that came out over the top, drop down, and start off this roller coaster ride all the way down to turn 11.
Scott Pruitt, the car just behind, and then just behind him is Al Unser Jr. There you see Rahal and that Craco STP yellow and blue livery on the car. And Pruitt close up just a little bit now. Let's go down to the pit area. Gary Gerald.
Scott Brayton came in and immediately shut the engine down, and the crew's trying to assess that suspension damage that you and Derek were talking about after the contact. They did get it restarted. He's limped in. Now they'll try to make a decision whether or not he can get him back out or if it can be repaired. Meanwhile, it's just wait for Scott Brayton in the Herc Celanese Amway number 22.
Looks like one of the push rods badly bent on that car, though that wouldn't be that difficult to change, but still it would be very, very time cost.
What makes it easy to change is that if they have preset the spare one. Not everybody does that. Now, I know Michael Andretti's team does it, but if they preset it, they can just bolt in, bolt out, and he's away.
Now they climb the top of the hill, and Emerson Fittipaldi is very definitely right at the back door of Michael Andretti in the continuing battle for the lead. As they came across the line just a second ago, they were only 0.4 of a second separated. Now, Remember John Andretti, this is his onboard camera a few laps ago as he was closing on the kart safety vehicle. Came out very wide off of turn 3. Darted inside the vehicle. Really not a problem for him. Looks a little more spectacular than it perhaps was.
Oh, but the stories that come from the safety crew truck at times, they're talking about inches that race cars miss it by. But remember the closing speed. The safety vehicle does what, 25 miles an hour? The race cars do 125 miles an hour. The closing speed is quite phenomenal.
You're sitting up on the back of that and they close at your those speed. Believe me, it's impressive no matter how far they miss you.
Now watch Emerson here. He is closing in on Michael. I'm sure that Emerson knows that if he pokes his nose down the inside, Michael won't chop it off because it's such a risky thing for Michael to do when the championship is the most important thing, not the race win.
Taking care is the watchword for Michael Andretti today. He is now being chased by 2 Penske cars just behind him. Leaders have been averaging 104.2 miles an hour. That's above the race record set last year by Danny Sullivan at 103.5. Let's go back to the pits and Gary Gerald.
Well, you can see Scott Brayton now out of the cockpit. They're damaging the suspension, apparently, Scott, and we had a limited view of what happened. What did happen from your seat?
Well, you know, we were all racing real hard, and I was trying to get position on Prappas coming out of the corner, and Jeff Andretti tried me on the inside, and I made it very evident that I was going for Prappas, and I was committed to the corner, and it's one of those things where we want enough room for 2 cars, and he hit me with his left rear, or his right front to my left rear, and that put me up and damaged the suspension when I came down.
Well, we appreciate a word with you. It's a tough way to end one, but we'll see you in 1992.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
No changes in the front of the order. Too bad. Scott Brayton's certainly looking ahead to next year on Dick Simon's team as his 22 Amway car gets pushed behind the wall. Michael Andretti still leads it. Emerson Fittipaldi continues his chase. It's off the course off of turn 2, and look at that. He spins the rear wheels trying to get himself out, and of course is Randy Lewis, who lives not that far from here in Northern California, but that's a gravel pit, Derek, and he's dug right in.
And the reason the gravel pit is there is to grab the car before it hits the barrier and does serious damage. Of course, what it does then is it keeps a hold of the car. It's very difficult to get out, impossible to drive out.
Kart safety 2 is right there, ready to give him help. Here's what happened. He came alone into the corner. It looked like he just cooked into the corner a little too hot.
Yeah, I didn't see much brake smoke. We can clearly see the front brakes work there, but now look what happens. He tries to keep the car running, keeps it running, but turns way too sharply, stops. That's where he'll stay.
And Randy Lewis, one of those that would like to make a good impression here today. He has a number of supporters that always come to this track, and among those are the money people from next year that help keep his racing effort alive. John Andretti in the pits, certainly unscheduled. They seem to be working in the cockpit. What do you think they're doing, Derek?
Well, whatever they're doing, it's not a major rush, so it's something that's going to take more than a couple of seconds. He's got a bit of tape there. I can't imagine what he's at inside in the cockpit. Look at the side pod. It's also off the car. That usually suggests electrical troubles.
Well, if they're working on the wheel, there's a switch, a master switch on the wheel that it might be. And that might be what they're taping. But Jan Beekes is right there and can update us.
Well, Paul, what they're doing is they're changing the ECM box. In other words, the electronic box is over in the side pod. They have a misfire, and they're also working on the steering wheel because that is where the kill button is. In other words, they're tracing all the electrics that they can to try and cure that misfire.
Boy, and watch Emerson Fittipaldi as he continues his chase of Michael Andretti with Rick Mears right behind him. And there have been a number of cars, especially in this section of the race course, use a little foot or 2 extra. And so you'll see dust from time to time. Now they find themselves cycling through some of the cars that are running well back in the field. That was John Jones, who started in last place, but the leaders just came past.
Traffic plays such a big role, but we saw John Jones. He did move aside. The first 2 went by. Rick goes by there, and now Mario, we just saw him on the top of the picture, slips by John Jones.
John Jones, of course, and using Buick power in his car. Mario Andretti is past. The rest of the field comes past, and John, the Canadian, very wisely gives plenty of racing room to the rest of those finding their way past him, and the race continues at the front of the field. Mario Andretti in pursuit of Rick Mears. Mario currently in 4th place, and Ray Hall lined up just behind him. That is not the position that Ray Hall wants. He needs to get past all of these cars. He needs to win here today, but he seems to be playing it very careful. Is he holding the purse for the end of the race, Derek?
Well, I don't think he has a choice, because this is a high-speed freight train here that nobody makes makes any mistakes. This is an incredibly competitive field. There's a full line of cars here that can take advantage of a mistake, but a mistake is the only thing that'll make a pass here, because nobody is gaining, and what a frustration it is for drivers when you see that car ahead of you. You make no mistakes, and you still can't get them lap after lap after lap.
The battle for 10th place. That is Ari Leyendijk with Paul Tracy driving the Penske car. Look at Paul. Paul tried him and tapped him, and he sends Ari Leyendijk off the course. Tracy stops as well. He tried to get under him in the second turn, couldn't do it. Tracy is under power, but he's got to be careful not to spin out, and he's quite careful enough.
Stuck. What's happened to Tracy, he's actually half off the road and half on the road, so the car is actually bottomed out in the middle, and the rear wheels do not have enough grip to drive. But Leyendijk, remember, he spun there yesterday in the Marlboro Challenge. That was turn 5.
Well, Ari Leyendijk, I thought it was at the bottom of the hill there at 2. Ari Leyendijk, there's Paul Tracy. Leyendijk is rolling. Paul Tracy's high-sided there, and if they can, it's going to be tough to get that car. It's 1,550 pounds when it doesn't have a driver in it. And look at Paul trying to help him out. He needs to be careful, though, because someone could get injured if they suddenly got that car pushed off but they're not making any way at all.
And if they push any harder, that rear wing might come off. Now, here's what happened. This is entering the braking area. Tracy tries to go down the inside, but he didn't get far enough down. And look at Leyendijk, takes his normal line, but Tracy doesn't have the line here. Goes with them. Oh, it's touch and go. Oh, Tracy sees what's going to happen. Locks up that front wheel, clips Leyendijk, and that's it. Quick spin, not too much damage, but we don't know what damage there is to that rear wing after those track marshals trying to push him back on.
Another look, the same situation.
It's a risky move to make, Paul, to go down the inside there. You have to be very decisive, and Leyendijk didn't think he'd make it, didn't think he was down in there. Cars touched. Leyendijk, look at that, lucky to get away, but look at those clouds of dust.
You're right, too, as we look at it again, turn 5. It is a difficult place to try to get inside someone here. Well, Paul Tracy, his third drive for Roger Penske this year, and they'll have to get him off the hump if he wants to get back into the fight.
The problem is here, Paul, things happen so fast. This is a 4th gear corner. They go through at 95 miles an hour. You have to be very decisive, and that move didn't come off because Tracy didn't quite get up alongside Leyendijk enough.
So here's the fight now between Al Unser Jr. and Scott Pruitt.
And he takes that position from Pruitt, has chased him for lap after lap, but eventually gets the job done, as again we see them come through the clouds of dust.
That's a fight for 6th place. We're seeing so much dust on this circuit now that it tells you how hard they are trying, because on almost every corner we're watching many of them run a foot or two off the track and kick up some dust. Let's get an update. Here's Jan Beekes.
John Andretti has brought the Pennzoil car back into the pits. It turned out it was not electrical. The misfire is still there. Now they're working on the fuel system. They're changing the electronic controls of the fuel management, as well as what they call the throttle position computer analysis part of the Chevrolet engine. So hopefully he'll get back underway. Paul?
A long, difficult time there. Much too long in the pits for John Andretti. Scott Pruitt, he runs in 6th place now as he tries to put his name into the record books and come as far forward as possible, and yet another car at the edge of the race course.
Jeff Wood, who had a struggle here all weekend because his car, look at Miro Fittipaldi, tried to slide
inside
down.
Michael. He almost had him there. Again, that is at the hairpin, and that now means that Fittipaldi will have to stay behind Michael for a couple of corners while he makes up that distance, but not too many, as Fittipaldi already lets Michael know that he is there, and Fittipaldi appears now to be a little bit quicker on this circuit.
Boy, I was surprised that Michael made Emerson work so hard, because it was all the way down to the apex of the corner, and there's the safety truck again, all the way down to the apex of the corner before Michael eventually pulled it away from Emerson.
If it were to finish right here and now, Michael Andretti would have the championship, but it's not nearly over. Andretti still leads here in Laguna Seca, California, 17 laps into the record book, but he is being pushed and pushed hard by Emerson Fittipaldi, who is lined up just behind, and now traffic continues to be a factor as the leaders begin to encounter slower cars as they work around this 11-turn course. Emerson Fittipaldi just a few laps ago tried it on Michael Andretti. This was going into turn 2.
This is similar to what Tracy did, but look at Emerson, knows he can't make it and just backs out. Look at Emerson's inside wheels up on the dirt. Lucky they didn't make contact.
And under traffic now, Emerson Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti continue to battle, but let's go to the pits. Gary Gerald has an update on Paul Tracy.
Well, a couple of updates in the Penske pit. Paul Tracy came in after they got him restarted. They gave him 4 fresh tires and got him right back on course. Didn't have any structural damage as the crew looked it over. Emerson Fittipaldi, who is hammering away on the backside of Michael Andretti, loves his race car. He loved it yesterday on the Marlboro Challenge. It was quick again this morning. He, along with his teammate Rick Mears, and they say that the setup seems to be ideal right now for Emerson. A very contented group down here in the Fittipaldi pit.
And Emerson Fittipaldi expresses his relationship with the race car in those personal terms quite often. He sees that race car as a living entity, as an element. He names them. He talks about his Red Beauty, for example, that won the Indianapolis 500 for him, as now they swoop down the hill nearly 300 feet from the top to the bottom, and Fittipaldi continues his chase of Michael.
You're absolutely right. When they make the seats for these drivers, they mold it round their back, because you actually wear a race car like you wear a glove. You slip right down into it and become one with your race car.
Is Fittipaldi in position to challenge Michael now at the second turn? They go through turn 1. Fittipaldi closes in, but Michael has been very good at guarding his position through this corner. Still, Fittipaldi closes in just a bit in the corner.
Guarding his position, that is a good phrase. Michael, all he has to do is actually use the center of the road, and then it's risky for Fittipaldi to try and get down the inside, as we saw earlier on. And the outside route is almost impossible.
So Fittipaldi still lined up behind Michael. Slower traffic just ahead. That could become a factor in this battle for the lead, as Fittipaldi has been lined up behind Michael right from the green flag. Michael started on the pole, got a good jump on the start, but now Fittipaldi is right there. The next real possibility for a pass comes at the top of this hill. They climb up. You see the markers counting off the yards down to the bottom of the hill. A flash of something out from under one of the rear tires there. It didn't seem to be significant, but something certainly to watch. And Fittipaldi does not try the pass. Let's get another update from the pits in Jan Vegas.
Paul, we've seen some cars making contact out there on the track, and now we're seeing that Emerson Fittipaldi is making that bid for Michael Andretti. Here in the Newman Haas pits, you can see they're ready for any eventuality. Look at all the spare parts that they've brought here. If he was to make contact, he could still come into the pits, change these, because they know here in the Newman Haas pit that every point is important, and Michael has to have those to take the title.
But you would think, on the other hand, that if Michael did have to go into the pits, it would take so long to change one of those rather substantive-looking parts that he might not finish in 6th place and therefore not take the championship. At the moment, he is being challenged by Emerson Fittipaldi, though in the past couple of laps, he has been able to pull away, while at the same time, Fittipaldi's teammate, Rick Mears, the other member of the Penske organization, remember there are 3 here today, Fittipaldi, Mears, and Paul Tracy, who you saw with his problems earlier. Mears has closed in from 3rd place and now sits in right behind Fittipaldi. So the Penske organization is pressing, and just behind them, the number 6 car, that is Mario Andretti. And how will the senior Andretti figure into this championship? Yellow flags being waved at the top of the hill, the blind turn that leads into the corkscrew as the safety vehicle is off the edge of the race course, out to retrieve a car stalled off the edge of the track in the gravel pit. And they are, in fact, as Jan suggested, that by the way was Hiro Matsushita off the side of the track, as Jan suggested, there he is.
Buried in the gravel trap. There again, Paul, is a good example. This was a very heavy braking area from 160 miles an hour, and yet the car did not get off the racetrack into the guardrail. Those gravel traps really do a good job.
Corner workers reported that he had a tire going down before he got to the top of the hill and then came straight off the course. One of the safety team members are there. Of course, you have the kart safety team, 2 trucks who constantly are available on the circuit. Chris Mears keeps track of her husband in 3rd place. Then you also have the course marshals here at Laguna Seca. There's Maury Cranes, who keeps track of his driver, Bobby Rahal. And without the volunteer work of the course marshals, you couldn't run a great event like this. Gigantic record crowd. And those course marshals have been here throughout the week, preparing the course, running all the preliminary races, running the Marlboro Challenge yesterday, and now are here for the final race of the IndyCar season.
Absolutely the unsung heroes of racing. They really work all day and get nothing but abuse from most of the people, because they're responsible for telling you what to do. People don't like to be told what to do. But the unsung heroes, but racing could not go on without it because of their flag stations.
We're coming very close to the very first scheduled pit stops now. We have 21 laps complete. 25 may be the first. But let's take a look at the individual team members' responsibility during the stop. This track fact is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. Here's Jan Beekes.
There is an incredible amount that takes place during a 15-second IndyCar pit stop. The Vince Granatelli crew is going to give us a demonstration. The first order of business is that Arie Luyendyk needs to bring the car right to a stop on the marks. He also needs to hold the brakes so they can change the tires. Peter Parrott does that for us now. Jim Wilson then comes in with both the air jack and the vent hose, and Bruce Anderson works the fuel. Now, because the fuel takes the longest of any portion of the pit stop, he needs to get connected quickly. Up at the front, we have Scott Lemon, who is the left tire changer. When Scott is done, he has time left over to make a front wing adjustment. Over on the right front, when Rick Davis is done, he has a chance to go into the radiator area and look for paper or look for debris. Coming around to the back of the car, we have Russ Cameron. Russ Cameron is going to be one of the most athletic of the group. He actually holds it with his head to steady it. He then will come around and get ready here where we're joined by John Stankina. We're ready to push the car. He has now touched Jim Wilson, who works that air jack. Let's drop it off the jacks. But wait, it's not quite time to go yet. We have to wait for the call from Vince Granatelli up in the timing stand before we can go. He gets the call. Arie Luyendyk is out of here. Now let's watch him do it at real speed.
Beautiful job there in that pit stop. Of course, that did not happen here. The pit stops are due very shortly here at Laguna Seca, California. 23 laps are now complete. Michael Andretti is still in the catbird seat, having the lead and the championship in hand. We'll be back. Pits for his first stop. Jan Beekes right there.
Well, you know, we just talked about the anatomy of a pit stop. They found they have some overheating problems. They may have some paper. Oh, he shuts it down. This must be serious overheating problems for Bobby Rahal. They think it might be paper in the radiators that have caused the car to overheat. This is the championship right here, guys.
Jim Prescott, who handles the right front wheel and handles the car, waved to Rahal and waved the engine to be shut off. Rahal is still in the cockpit, hoping that something can be done. He's showing a bit of impatience, of course, with the tapping of the finger. And now they go to the side pods. But the championship could have been decided just in that split second.
Anything can happen in racing. And look at Rahal, hands strapped over the windshield. All he can do is wait, listen, look in the rearview mirrors. Hopefully, well, I mean, even if they get a fix now, he's way too far behind, unless something happens, Michael.
There is Michael Andretti. If Rahal climbs out of that car, Michael is, in fact, the champion at this moment, but Rahal is going to stay in there. Still, the challenge is immense. Rahal starts to climb out of the race car. Michael Andretti is the champion. Michael Andretti has earned his first PPG Cup as Bobby Rahal walks away from his stricken car on pit road. What we thought might have been a routine stop. Look at him go down, Bobby Rahal, shaking hands with most of his crew members for really a brilliant season, and now thanking the Newman Haas organization for what a wonderful run and congratulating them on the championship. Boy, is that great sports play there. Bobby Rahal congratulates Michael's team and says, for us, it's over.
I know.
Jan Beekes is right there.
Bobby Rahal has just got from the car, and Bobby is going to be taking it off. He's talking to Bernie, his engineer. Bobby, I hate to barge right in on you like this, but you never expected it to happen this way.
Don't cry.
As he kisses his wife, Debbie. Bobby, you didn't want it to end this way.
No, it's unfortunate the car wasn't handling badly, but the car started overheating pretty early, and I just lost, I was down to about 10 pounds of oil pressure, and it was starting to vibrate real bad, and it's just a matter of time.
You're a true sportsman, though. That was great to go down there and shake everybody's hand.
It's been a hard-fought year, and, you know, you've got to respect, you know, effort, and, you know, they've done a super job. They deserve it.
Thanks, Bobby.
So Bobby Rahal over the wall, and this man is already the champion. So now the focus is the race itself, and he's in great position there as well. Now with 1.2 seconds over Emerson Fittipaldi, but the pit stops do just any time for Michael Andretti. The Newman Haas team has really been skillful at stretching the fuel tank just as far as they can. And let us not forget that this race here today is still one that is governed by fuel, and fuel could be a critical factor before the end of this day.
That's right, but the game plan is now changed. Any conservative strategy that Michael was even thinking about on handling Emerson Fittipaldi now goes out the window. Now he's out here. The championship is safe. He can go for it all.
Hiro Matsushita, they got him out of the gravel pit, and he is on pit road back for some service from his crew as well. And there's Cor Orser, who has really had a remarkable story here this week and came into the pits in 10th place, and he is in the other car, the Tony Bentonhausen team, and really doing a magnificent job.
He has done an incredible job, and on the pace all weekend here. A lot of people up in the pit lane said, isn't it great that somebody can come in and just get a Chevrolet just like that when everybody's been crying for them for the last 2 years.
Rick Mears running 3rd place on pit road. Gary Gerald's waiting.
We watch. Here he is, right on line. The man who had that heartbreaking moment coming off the final turn of the final lap in the Marlboro Challenge yesterday. Tough work for this crew, Paul, because they're on the side of the hill. They're at pit out, and they wait now. The fueling is completed and on to Jackson. 13.5 seconds for Rick Mears. Good stop for the Penske team.
So Rick Mears comes back into the fight. He'll lose a few positions as he comes out of the pits and gets back up to speed. What Gary Gerold mentioned to you is really critically important for both Rick and Emerson Fittipaldi. They're at the top of the hill. The camera angle makes it hard to tell, but it's a very difficult situation to engage the clutch and get out of there.
That's the thing, engage the clutch. These clutch pedals can be very sensitive, and you drop it too early, you kill the engine. On an uphill incline like they are, the mechanics find it very difficult to push start these cars.
Buddy Lazier in the Himmelgarn car makes it in and out. Routine pit stop for him. Not a factor in this battle at the moment. The battle is still at the front of the field and led by this man, the number 2 Kmart machine, handled by Michael Andretti with his nemesis now Emerson Fittipaldi. But he has a great deal to relax over.
Yeah.
There's his father comes into the pits. Jan Beekes is right there.
Mario Andretti brings the car to a stop. They're bringing him in a lap early, so the track will be clear for when Michael comes in. They make that front wing adjustment, waiting for the fuel. Everything is done. They'll get back and ready to push, just like we talked about in that feature. It's down, and he's out it. Oh, the engine stalls. They're trying to get it restarted. They're pushing as hard as they can. Oh, there it is. It fires, and he's out of here.
It is much more difficult than one might imagine to get these cars rolling.
And can you imagine if you had to push it uphill like Emerson's crew or Rick Mears' crew would have to do if they stalled it?
Mario Andretti, so he comes back at full speed and will drop back through the field as well. So now the team waits for Michael as Ari Lyondike comes in for some refreshment from the Granatelli team. New tires, a full load of fuel. Ari, remember, had this problem earlier on. They've made some changes to the front wing. He tapped with Paul Tracy, and whoa, he almost gets nailed by Scott Goodyear as Goodyear comes in for a stop. May not have been quite as close as it looked, but still it was enough to have Ari slam on the brakes.
The harem scarum time again. So much can happen when you're trying to get into your pit, and so much can happen when you get out. Remember, it's not the time you're stopped, it's the overall time.
Michael Andretti is in, Jan Beekes.
Michael Andretti brought it in, and right behind him, Emerson Fittipaldi came in. This crew was really nervous about the championship, but now they don't have to worry about it. They're going for full speed. He's down, lights up the tires, and he's out of here. Go ahead, Gary.
And we watch and we see him come up the road. Emerson is still getting fuel. Now he goes off the jacks. Michael flies by. Emerson leaves. It wasn't a particularly fast stop. We had it nearly 16 seconds for Fittipaldi.
And Michael Andretti came roaring past Fittipaldi. Now he is alongside Ted Prappis as he comes back up to speed. And look at the separation back to Emerson Fittipaldi. So, in fact, Michael Andretti gained a little space, a little time on that pit stop. So the Newman Haas crew did a good job for him. Let's go back, look at this. This is Ari Lyondike as he came out. Now watch, Scott Goodyear comes dialing across the front. Ari yanks the car over to the right, slams on the brakes, then drops the throttle again and roars out of the pits. A little scary.
A little scary. Remember, Lyondike cannot see behind him in the hot lane because he's tucked way into his pit lane. So he depends on his crewman to tell him when to go and when not to go. I'm glad he had good communication there.
Al Unser Jr. wearing the number 1 for the last time this season, the defending PPG champion. Already there is a new one, though not officially declared yet. And Al Unser Jr. is being chased by Rick Mears. They've made their stops as well. So down the order, everyone, with the exception exception of Ted Prappas, has made their stop. And so it will be on to the second stop. And Emerson Fittipaldi will battle with Michael Andretti at the front of the field. But Michael Andretti can relax, but relax only just a bit. Al Unser Jr. with Rick Mears just behind him as they climb the hill once again.
So Al Jr. was one of the drivers who took full advantage of gaining position on the track through a pit stop.
So at Laguna Seca, 30 laps are complete. The first stops are complete, but the battle continues. Andretti with Arie Luyendyk coming to the inside. Not a battle for position, but still, it's a good fight here on the racetrack. And Arie Luyendyk, after that almost disastrous pit stop, as he faltered coming out, as Scott Goodyear came across the front of him, came out to do battle with this man, Jeff Andretti. And Jeff, of course, just wants to keep his hopes alive for Rookie of the Year honors and put yet another really great Andretti name into the record book. Last year here at Laguna Seca, Danny Sullivan sat on the pole. He led from start to finish. He talks now about the special characteristics of this track in this week's Tips from the Cockpit.
Laguna is one of the unique tracks for us in that it has such an incredible height change from sort of the pit straightaway, which there even is quite a huge crown there, down into turn 1. Then the sort of flat part around the lake, and then you go back up what is the old circuit, and of course the great climb up to the corkscrew. And your braking in there is very, very critical because you have no reference points or anything, because you think, well, I can go in here a little later, and you can't see the corner, and all of a sudden you come up over that brow, and boom, there's the hairpin. There is the famous corkscrew. And this is just a flat landing pad in there. You got to get it all slowed down, all braked. A lot of people will lock up in there because they carry too much speed over that crown that brings them into there. And now you turn left into the corkscrew, and you turn left, give it a shot, and there's nothing there. You just have to trust that God didn't take it away from the last time that you were there. And you go off the corner, you lift off as you launch off, car goes down, you get the car as on its way down and it settles, and then you pick up the throttle down there. I think racing at Laguna Seca is as good as it gets in the United States. This is one of my favorite courses. It's a place that I enjoy coming to. The crowd's great out here, and it's a very demanding, very physical course, but it's a good race course, and it's one that allows some pretty exciting racing.
Description of the corkscrew from Danny Sullivan, who currently runs in 9th place in his last ride for Pat Patrick with the Alfa Romeo power. Number 14 is 10th place. That's Mike Groff. And you see Scott Goodyear right behind him, and right behind Scott is Urser. So we've got a nice little battle here, 10th, 11th, 12th.
Mike Groff, who watched Scott Goodyear here. Groff has a bit of a disjointed season since he joined AJ Foyt. Scott Goodyear here having what he hopes to be the last race with the Judd power. Wants to move on to bigger and better things next year. McKenzie sponsors him, Canadian company sponsoring a Canadian driver. But another Dutch driver here, Paul. You mentioned Oyster. We've had a competition, whether we call him User, Oyster, Urser, whatever it is. He does a great job, and Tony Bettenhausen's backup car has been in the top 10 on a regular basis. Comes to us from the European Formula 3000 Championship, and really has struggled all his career to get the breaks he needs.
And look how careful Michael Andretti was of him. As the leader of the race, he came up. Now, he saw that mark on the rear wing that said this is a new driver here. You see it over on the right-hand corner of the rear wing of the 90 car there. So he knows, I got to be a little careful. This guy doesn't know me. The same thing with Fittipaldi. He doesn't know our style, so we both have to be very careful as we come past. So the leaders, Michael Andretti, then Fittipaldi, are through. In third place, Al Unser Jr. and Rick Mears.
That is an interesting point, Paul. You do get used to a driver's style. You know who you can trust, and you know who you have to give maybe an extra couple of feet to.
And of course, wisely, CART marks the rear wing of new drivers so that you know exactly what you're dealing with when you come up. Now, let's go back down to the pits. Jan Beekes.
Well, Paul, when you and Derek were talking about Al Unser Jr. picking up a position on those last round of pit stops, you should have seen the jubilation here of the Gallus Craco crew. It looked as though they just won the the race. They really take this seriously. They also had the quickest pit stop yesterday during the Marlboro Challenge. They've done it again today.
Got a glimpse of Owen Snyder there. There, of course, Rick Gallis, one of the co-owners of the Gallis-Craco operation, along with Maury Cranes. And there is his driver, the last time that he will carry that #1. Though some drivers, when they win the championship, opt not to carry it. I remember Gordon Johncock, the pace car driver, here today when he won the championship. Please don't put #1 on my car. Some of the older guys especially believe it's bad luck.
No, I think it's good luck. You've earned it. You deserve it. You should show it off with style. But Alonso Jr. wearing it on this car for the last time, because remember, all he's waiting for is that new Gallmer-designed Indy car, the one that he hopes will give him that so-called, in racing terms, unfair advantage.
Ted Brappis's car being pushed behind the wall as he is retired from this final run of the 1991 season. Michael Andretti, conclusion of 33 laps. Very little has changed since then. They've remained static in their positions, though Fittipaldi appears to be a bit faster than Michael and just waiting station behind him.
Definitely Emerson has a faster package under him at the moment. Remember, he closed probably 50 yards after that pit stop on Michael, and he closes up particularly under heavy braking. You remember earlier he attempted to go down the inside of Michael. Here's the heavy braking area here. Look, what is it now? 2 car lengths?
Emerson Fittipaldi, they climb the hill again. And he continues his pursuit, lined up not really in an attack position on Michael. There's Carl Haas, one of the 2 owners of the Newman-Haas organization, Paul Newman being the other. And Fittipaldi sticks his nose right under the rear wing of Michael as they come off the second turn and head for turn 3. Fittipaldi tries a little tighter line into the corner. Not good enough to get inside Michael Andretti, though he continues to try that line.
Emerson has spent so much time behind Michael now. His brain works like a computer, calculating where he can make the move, where his best chance is to pass Michael. And from what I've seen, it's along that front straight. He's got to get close enough to him and braking into turn 2. That's where Emerson's car is good.
Buddy Lazier in the 39 car just ahead of the leaders as they climb up toward the top of the corkscrew. I wonder how much difference cooling is going to make. Look how Michael Andretti takes it very careful behind this driver that is to some degree an unknown factor to Michael. He tries to come to the outside. This gives Fittipaldi a closing opportunity.
Oh, it really does. Slows Michael down. Now, there's nothing Buddy Lazier could have done, but now look at Emerson. Now he's closer than he was earlier, because the run down this next straight is where he needs to be, right behind Michael's rear wing.
Still in turn 11, a favorite passing area. Fittipaldi doesn't try it. Roger Penske watches his driver, Emerson Fittipaldi, as well as Rick Mears and Paul Tracy. Next passing opportunity coming, and Fittipaldi looks to the inside but does not try it.
Oh, so close. You have to be so close, because Michael is, remember, running extremely fast. He closes down the door as his wife Sandy watches. Roger Penske watches. He almost had a heart attack yesterday when Rick ran out of fuel, but Emerson got caught by traffic.
Fittipaldi got caught, and a problem. Fittipaldi has a problem on that race car.
Yes, he is in trouble, running very, very slowly. Fittipaldi off the pace. That looks like his seatbelt.
Something flapping out of the car. It certainly does look like a belt. And of course, the belts are not just a safety factor, or is it the pad? It's his pad. That's what helps him stay upright, I would think.
Well, whatever it is, it's causing him a lot of discomfort. He sticks his arm out, grabs a hold of it, tries to pull it back in, but it looked as if it was actually, oh, look at this. Groff slides down the inside.
Mike Groff takes the opportunity on the slower Fittipaldi, as does everyone else. Fittipaldi, no doubt, will be heading for the pits. He's obviously on the radio right now to Chuck Sprague in his pit. There's his teammate just behind him as Rick Mears comes up alongside Fittipaldi, and Fittipaldi decides to go on past the pits, but he lets Rick Mears come to the inside. And they touch the 2 Penske cars together.
I don't think Emerson thought that Rick was down the inside. What a disaster for Fittipaldi. Slows down, loses all those positions, and then has no idea that his teammate Rick is right down the inside. Rick climbed the curves.
Chuck Sprague, I mentioned him. He is the one that is on the 2-way radio to MO. Roger stays on the radio to Rick Mears. What kind of lack of coordination is that?
Well, obviously, Rick went down the inside because he presumed whatever trouble Emerson had, he still had it, so he took the opportunity.
Here it is is one more time. There is Rick coming up to the inside alongside Fittipaldi.
And he has the line, but Emerson doesn't see him in there. Now watch Rick. Look, up over the curbs, and eventually touches and just nudges. Hits him twice, pushes Emerson out of the way.
And of course, that run over the curb could be expensive for Rick as well, because it can damage suspension.
Here
One
it is
more
again.
time.
Okay, Mears takes the line. Emerson has no idea he's there. Rick locks the wheels, hits the curb, drills Emerson once, then drills him a second time.
And with a touch on the wheel, it takes the right front side plate down on Emerson, or on Rick Mears' car. Shouldn't have much of effect. There it is again. Boy, you seldom see that, two Penske cars together.
And the key to it is, I'm sure Rick thought, whatever trouble he has, he still has it, so I might as well get on my way.
Chuck Sprague calls the crew back in as Fittipaldi continues out on the circuit. And maybe Gary Gerald can tell us what the problem was with Fittipaldi. Gary?
Paul, I happened to be right alongside Rick Reineman, and he was looking over toward turn 3 when he hollered back across the pit toward Chuck Sprague, "We've got a problem." They didn't know what it was. It was quite a while before they finally thought that it was something to do with the shoulder harness, which you and Derek pointed out. But now we get a report that they haven't decided yet whether or not they're going to bring him in. They haven't gotten a black flag, so apparently it's a situation Emerson is able to control. We thought after the contact with Rick that Mears might be coming in, but they both just went by us a moment ago. We wait with the crew and see.
And they continue battling hard on the circuit, Gary.
I don't think it would be a shoulder harness, as I suggested earlier on. That's all we could see flapping, because there's no way Emerson could redo those seatbelts himself, because they're so tightly hold the driver. He needs a mechanic to do those seatbelts, and there's no way, Paul, he'd run without them.
I thought it might have been the right side pad that protects his shoulder and helmet inside the cockpit that flapped out there, and then he was able to get it back in. Whatever it was, it seems that Emerson has gotten it under control and now continues a pursuit of Rick Mears. But they both have dropped back in the field. Mears runs third, Fittipaldi runs fourth. With that problem, Al Unser Jr. moves up into second place. Michael Andretti has the lead 10 seconds ahead of Michael. The Pioneer race recap at the conclusion of 40 laps. Michael Andretti has been the power in this race, already wrapping up the championship. No full course cautions yet, and 5 cars out of this race. The average speed is just a tick above Danny Sullivan's record of last year. His record 103.5. They're running at 103.6 miles an hour. These cars out of the race: Brayton Rahal, Paul Tracy, Randy Lewis, and Ted Kravis.
So the battle continues. Whatever was giving Fittipaldi problems, he might have it inside the car with him, which means it could be running around a bit, or he might have thrown it out. We couldn't quite see what happened there, but he lost an awful lot of positions.
Fittipaldi was very definitely in a position to challenge Michael Andretti for the lead of the race, and then fell back when he developed that problem. And you see Mario Andretti has now closed in from 6th place, just behind the 5th place Fittipaldi.
And of course, it has given Michael a huge breathing space here, because while everybody else had their trouble, Michael was able to get away. But look at Mario now, right up behind Emerson.
Mario lined up behind Emerson Fittipaldi as we've now reached the halfway point here at Laguna Seca. 42 laps of the 84-lap scheduled distance complete. Michael Andretti continues to control the race. Al Unser Jr. is not challenging from second, and the battle is within the Penske team. In traffic, the battle continues at Laguna Seca between the two Penske cars. Mears, Fittipaldi, and Mario Andretti tries inside of Fittipaldi, and Mario's got him. Mario picks up the position. Fittipaldi turns offline for just a second in a very crowded corner.
Well, I would say Emerson has to be gun-shy down there at that very slow turn 11 corner. Mario went down the inside, but actually took the line completely. We saw Emerson bobble a little bit, then he gave him the line, said, okay, I give in.
So Mario Andretti up to 4th place. Rick Mears just ahead in 3rd. Then Al Unser Jr. in 2nd. But 8 seconds ahead of Little Al is Michael Andretti, still controlling this race. Mario Andretti, car number 6. He could have been a factor. Many people in the paddock were talking about what role could he play in the ultimate championship fight. Could he help control the race for his son? Well, it's not a factor anymore. Michael is the champion. But now Mario is embroiled in a wonderful battle himself with Emerson Fittipaldi, who ran in 2nd behind Michael for so long until he had that mechanical failure still undefined.
And the one thing Mario did not want Michael to have to do was to be conservative, because in '84, when he won the championship, he was told to be conservative, at Las Vegas and got in all sorts of trouble, got in everybody else's problems. So Mario was really hoping Michael could just go from the front and race hard like he always does.
Here is the situation that developed. Look what's flapping on the side of the car there. That's Emerson's car a few laps ago.
And it's hooked onto something. It looks like the radio or part of his helmet or something is hooked on there.
Or is it a fluid container?
Now watch what he does here. He sticks his hand out. Look, he sticks his hand out, grabs it, pulls it back in. But of course, steering one-handed, Paul, he has to slow down. And that's what gave everybody the opportunity. There's a great shot. He drags it back into the cockpit with him.
And what an incredible piece of driving while he climbs the hill. I think it may be his fluid container. He has a rubber tube that runs up into the helmet so he can get refreshment on what is a hot day. What about Paul Tracy's situation? Let's go down to the pits and Gary Gerald.
Paul, before we get to Paul Tracy, an update on Emerson. What is tangled back there has disconnected his radio, so the crew has no radio contact with him. That's why there was confusion about whether or not he would come to the pits. They've shown him a ready sign on the pit board, so if he needs to come to the pits, they are ready when he comes in. Now, as for Paul Tracy, he was involved with Ari Lyondike, got the car out, ran out of water, engine got hot. That puts you out of the race. What happened with the contact with Lyondike?
The Mobil 1 car was running really good, and we were just trying to get by Ari. I didn't want to lose touch with Cheever and the other group of cars, and came down inside turn 5, and there wasn't enough room for both of us, and we touched and both went off the track. And I got high-sided. The motor got hot.
How many races in '92 for you, Paul? Do you know at this point?
Well, I'm not real sure just yet how many races we're going to do. We're just going to go forth with our testing program through the winter, and then we'll see what the cards unfold for next year.
We wish you well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Paul?
The test driver of close scores for Roger Penske. Kind of wish they wouldn't do that. Problem in trouble, car in trouble in the pits. That's Buddy Lazier once again. And with the calling off, now the crew's saying, come on out of there, buddy. Your season is done as well. Now we have 5 cars, now 6 out of the race. 3 of them reported out with overheating. The temperature is expected to go into the 90s here today, so Mother Nature may yet be a factor. And look at this fight. Willie T, there is Tony Bentonhausen.
Didier Thays is in there leading that group. Oh, John Andretti almost wheel-to-wheel contact. Great in-car camera shots. Willie T just right ahead of Tony Bentonhausen. Didier Thays leads this group here. Didier Thays brings a new sponsor to IndyCar racing this weekend. Kinko's Printing and Copying.
And it's really a battle for 13th place, but they're fighting like it was for the lead. Let's go to the pits for a further update from Jan Vikas.
Well, Paul, Allenzer Jr. is out there chipping off gradually that interval between himself and Michael Andretti. The crew is watching it very carefully, and they're very happy with the car right now. But when he comes into the pits, they're going to make some slight changes on tire pressures, and they think they can run him down.
So Allenzer Jr. is in second place. He is closing, but still not very close. 7.9 seconds back as he comes up behind the Alfa Romeo car of Danny Sullivan, who drives the last time with that power and on that team. He will be Little Al's teammate next year. Laguna Seca, when he came into this race, Michael Andretti, the current leader, had 881 leader laps this season. A record. Well, count another 46 for him. Allenzer Jr. is in second place, 7.5 seconds back. Then Rick Mears, then Mario Andretti, and Emerson Fittipaldi with his problems has dropped back into 5th place, but appears to have those problems now solved and is back running at speed.
Let's listen to Michael. This is 3rd gear in a 6-speed gearbox.
There's second place, Allenzer Jr. Move off Michael for a moment. Roberto Guerrero comes into the pits, and some stops being anticipated within the next few laps here.
Al Jr. quietly going about his business here. Started in 8th place and now is running a very strong 2nd place. And look where Michael Andretti is not that far ahead. But look,
look at him cook the brakes coming in there.
The brakes. Burn that rubber off on the first of the infield. That's turn 3.
And you think Michael is driving carefully now?
Well, I think he's using the engine very carefully. But remember, at the start, after the warm-up, he told me he's going to use the brakes just as hard as he ever has. And we see good signs of that here when he locks up those front brakes.
Well, you'll get a good indication of the interval. Michael Andretti really runs alone on the circuit. Allenzer Jr. is now 8.1 seconds back. Michael Andretti with a car that is now almost 200 pounds lighter than as he left the last pit stop. But he continues to smoke that right front brake. I wonder if that's indicative of a problem.
You can actually hear those brakes lock up, as we saw just under heavy braking for the corkscrew. You can see him use all the racetrack too. Look at the white line that actually goes round the racetrack, drives over the top of them, all the way out to one side, then all the way to the white line on the other side.
Well, there is Eddie Cheever, the 6th place car, the Target machine, Chip Ganassi Racing. Now, Eddie Cheever is always fairly vocal about any racetrack that he runs on. Before this race, we were able to talk to him about the track itself. Gary Gerald always enjoys sitting down and spending some time to find out how Eddie perceives something, because it's often different than everyone else. So naturally, we asked him about the corkscrew. What is it like, and how does he like it?
I hate the corkscrew with a passion. I think it's one of the silliest corners I have ever seen in motor racing. And it's strange, but whenever I was watching motorcycle races, I would always watch Laguna because they'd have that corkscrew. In a racing car, it's terrible. You can't see anything. You go over the top, you have to kind of feel your way around. It's a real difficult corner. It's a very easy corner if you make a mistake under braking to carry 3 people with you into the trees. I mean, it's a difficult corner to get it right, but it's so easy to get it wrong. I mean, it doesn't, for me, it's not a corner that I take great pleasure in approaching.
Eddie Cheever on the corkscrew here at Laguna Seca. He mentioned the Grand Prix bikes, the 500cc bikes, who race here at Laguna Seca in April before another giant crowd and are just wonderful to watch. It was interesting that Kenny Roberts' team brought their 500cc Marlboro bikes out and let Mario Andretti drive one around this racetrack, or ride one. And Mario, he showed he had some stuff there. He loves, as does Michael, watching the 500cc bikes run. There's the corkscrew for Eddie Cheever. He hates it, hated it at the beginning, probably hates it now.
And you mentioned Eddie and Mario in the same piece. It's interesting, they had another confrontation today, or over the weekend, Mario Andretti and Eddie Cheever. They are definitely not on each other's Christmas card list.
Over what now? They seem to have an ongoing battle, the Andrettis and Cheever.
Well, it's something that happened on the racetrack, and he was very vocal, and he told me what words to use, and he promised me a Christmas present if I used it, but I need to do a bit more TV work, so I couldn't use it.
Michael Andretti, you saw Carl Haas, the famous unlit cigar, but Michael continues to light the brakes on that right front tire. We'll be back. Beginning at Laguna Seca as John Andretti, one of the first to head for the pits. Not a factor at the front of the field, but certainly an important run for this team. And look at him roar out of the pits as the scenery whizzes past.
Great shots here. Just see that bridge whiz by. These cars accelerate incredibly fast from 0 to 100 miles an hour in less than 4 seconds, but the braking capacity is even more impressive.
John Andretti, of course, had his problems early on, and that's dropped him well down into 22nd position in this Quaker State onboard camera view. His cousin now, Jeff Andretti, is in the pits, wrapping up the Rookie of the Year honors in the IndyCar Series.
May be his last race, Paul, with this team.
Which would be too bad. He's done a nice job for the team, but like so many in this economy, there has been a problem securing sponsorship for a number of teams next year. And now there's trouble just trying to secure a little fire in that engine as Jeff Andretti finally gets it. No, maybe not. Yes, maybe so. Oh, what a long, long moment if you're in the cockpit. Jeff Andretti finally motors away.
And there's all his mechanics saying, please fire, because we don't want to have to sprint down the pit lane pushing 1,500 pounds worth of a Texaco Havilland car.
Both the leaders of the race, Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr., are simply flying out there, 108.5 miles an hour. The last lap that they turned, John Andretti trying to make up time and position, but he has a long road to go. The real interesting fight, of course, now becomes Al Unser Jr. to see if he can overhaul Bobby Rahal for second place in the point standings. With a victory, the difference between second and third is $100,000 in PPG prize money at the end of the season. And so Al Unser Jr., for him, a victory is a very critical situation and a very important one financially.
And Al Jr. was only eliminated from the championship fight at Nazareth, which was only 1 race ago. The mathematical possibility of winning the championship went there. But you're right, there's a lot of money and a lot of prestige still on finishing runner-up. Remember, he was first last year, second would be very good this year.
his first stop, in and out, retained the lead in doing so. He's already wrapped up the championship when Bobby Rahall's car overheated and Rahal had to pull to the side of the race course. Then Emerson Fittipaldi mounted a battle just behind for second place, but he couldn't get it done and had his technical problems. You're watching John Andretti come down through the corkscrew. The scenery build up behind him, and that gives you an idea of just how much of a hill is there.
And how much correction he makes on that wheel. Look at that arm. Look, fights to try and get the exact line he wants. See the way the steering jerks around under braking? Look at all those little movements,
Mario Andretti. Mario runs in fourth place with Emerson Fittipaldi after apparently correcting the problem he had, and part of that problem is still unknown. It's anybody's guess, because when the problem developed as something flapping out of the cockpit that Emo eventually pulled back in, it also took away his two-way radio communications with the pits. And while they do have some hand signals that they can use to tell the pits what's going on with the car, I don't think anybody provides something to explain what happened to him. So now he chases Mario Andretti, who is having just a fine run here today, and I'm sure is elated because he certainly already recognizes, and it has been reported on the radio to him, that his son is in fact the champion, following in his father's footsteps.
Big Fittipaldi success in Europe over the last couple of weeks when Emerson's nephew, Christian Fittipaldi, his brother's son, wrapped up the European Formula 3000 Championship and now is 20 years old and talking about going Formula 1.
Some other great programming here on ESPN tomorrow. Join host John Sanders for a look at the 1991 Fall Classic as ESPN presents a World Series special. That's Monday night, October 21st at 7:30 Eastern Time. Well, the fight continues here at Laguna Seca. Al Unser Jr. figures prominently into it, running in second place. If he can win, he can move up to second place in the points, and that's worth a lot of money. Leaders of this race, the stops have yet to come, but they're having trouble with the left front wheel.
Can't get that wheel off. Precious seconds get lost as they try to get that left front tire off. But still, they just about got it done. Spray the water on the methanol to dilute that. Pruitt pulls his visor down and out of there.
Scott Pruitt driving a car that will have Chevrolet power next year. What is considered by most to be the power that one must have to win in the series. But then again, there are newer engines coming along. The new Cosworth, another Ilmore has yet to be named, but certainly its title will be sold off to some U.S. company, and Michael Andretti will continue with his Chevrolet engine. Scott Pruitt, by the way, you saw him there for a moment as we watch this fight continue between Emerson and Mario Andretti. It looked like Emerson was going to try to the inside of Mario. Scott has a most unique system in his helmet. It's kind of the IndyCar version of the fighter pilot's heads-up display. A couple of little LEDs, little light-emitting diodes, lights, inside his visor that will tell him when fuel is running low and tell him when he hits the top of the tack, and also if he has an oil pressure problem. So he doesn't have to glance down at the dashboard and can keep his eyes on the track. Pretty innovative stuff. Of course, that True Sports car for the entire year has been a most innovative machine. For Rick Mears, the Penske organization waits. Mears in third place, about 20 seconds behind the leader of the race and 13 seconds behind Al Unser Jr. The crew reporting out to Michael Andretti, in 3 laps, you can come in.
And he had a great first pit stop, but it looks to me as if Emerson, trying to pass Mario, is in a faster car. He can't get the job done on the racetrack. He will hope to make a pass in the pit lane.
Mears pulls off. Gary Gerald is at the top of the hill waiting for him. They're going to cycle this, bring Rick in first, and then Emerson Fittipaldi on the next lap. Here's Gary Gerald.
Coming up the hill is Rick Mears, currently in third place. He'll lose a couple of positions, but he'll try to get out and see if he can gain some ground. They're right on target. They'll have 28 laps to go to finish this. They've gone 28 and 28 on the previous stop. Everything appears to be routine for the Rocket Man. They're waiting for the final precious drops of fuel, and now he gets away in just under 15 seconds, Paul.
And as you can see from the damage to the front of the car, that's a war-weary machine for Rick Mears. Here is Eddie Cheever making his stop. He came into the pits while running in 6th place. The Ganassi crew goes to work on that car. A change full around. They wait for the fuel, and Eddie Cheever pulls away. Emerson Fittipaldi now the focus, because Fittipaldi should stop next. One wonders what the strategy will be in the Newman Haas pits. Last time they stopped Mario first ahead of Michael so that they could get a clear run and in out of the pits. The Newman Haas team has been running their stops just a little bit longer, their fuel tank a little further than most of the other cars. And Fittipaldi passes up the pit entrance and continues at speed. So he continues his fight with Mario Andretti. At Nathman, Tom Worth keeping track of Michael Andretti as he continues to circle in the lead here at Laguna Seca. He slowed it down just a little bit. Seems to be taking his time, taking it carefully as he cycles through traffic. He is now 6.5 seconds ahead of Al Unser Jr.
That's the car, the Panasonic car, Hiro Matsushita, right ahead of Michael Andretti. We saw him get a puncture earlier on and get buried in that gravel trap. Now he must move over and let Michael through. Oh, Michael goes to the right and Hiro moves to the right.
One of those frightening moments for a man like Michael.
You get half a second to decide, and if you decide to go the same way, that's exactly what happens.
So they're going to bring Mario Andretti in first to the Newman Haas pits. That'll clear it out for Michael, so he will have a nice clear run. Now their pit is down about 4 positions from the pit end point. So not only do they have to be very careful as they come onto the pit road, there is a left-hand turn. It's a right angle turn. And for Mario and Michael, you make that turn and immediately have to dart over into your pit. It's very close, very tight. Ari Lyondike comes into the pits. He was in 7th place as he came rolling in. Mario Andretti kept rolling on past his pit, the pit entrance, but Emerson Fittipaldi decided it's time to come in, and Gary Gerald waits for him.
Emerson comes in hot. Now he gets it under control, has to lock the brakes, hits the mark. He's shaking his head, pointing to the back. He's obviously upset, bangs his fist on the wheel. We think that Rick Reineman, once he completes the right front change, will go into the cockpit. No, somebody else was already there. They're trying to adjust back there around the helmet, but they're not going to take much more time. 15.7, and I don't think they got the problem corrected with the radio, Paul.
Well, it looked like everything else was proper in the cockpit. I took a special look to make sure the shoulder harnesses were snatched and down, something that you assume anyway, because it would be very difficult for Emo to work around this track unless his harness was cinched up properly. But it didn't look like they got an opportunity to fix whatever the problem was.
No, they didn't, and Emerson is absolutely furious. Now, the reason he's so furious is it's so incredibly difficult to make passes out on this racetrack. Here he trails Mario, couldn't get the job done. He was ahead of Rick, and something came loose in the cockpit. That's what infuriates a driver.
Well, Mario Andretti, having passed up the pits before, will he do it again? No, this time he's convinced it's time to come in. Mario Andretti will come around that corner in just a moment. Al Unser Jr. in 2nd place already is in the pits. The Gallus Craco operation giving him 4 tires and fuel on the car, though they really had to stretch out to get the fuel hose over to the car. And Jan Vikas watches as Al Unser Jr. pulls away and Mario stops.
Al Unser Jr. has just pulled away. They're waiting for the last bit of fuel. They had 33 gallons to get in. Mario Andretti's out of the way. Right as he pulls out, they're scrambling over the wall to get ready for Michael Andretti.
Here is Michael Andretti climbing the hill. Still some time before he comes in. Al Unser Jr. came out ahead of Mario. And we'll keep track of the lineup as we watch Michael as he comes down the hill through the corkscrew, and he is due for a pit stop on what will be his 60th race lap.
And the hoped for position change that Emerson would have tried to pull off in the pit lane did not happen. He did not get out ahead of Mario.
So Michael is on the pit road. The crew looks for him, and so does Jan Vikas.
Here comes Michael Andretti. Al Jr. has already showed what he can do. Now let's see what the Newman Haas crew can pull off. This is where the Gallus Craco team caught up last time. Let's see what happens here with Michael. They check the radiator vents to see if there's anything. Waiting for the last drop of fuel. They had 34 gallons. They wait for every... Boy, they're being careful. Now he's off. It's a long stop, Paul.
15.2 seconds, the stop for Michael Andretti. And there's little Al coming down the hill, but he still has another corner to negotiate. So little Al, it does not appear, has any chance to catch Michael Andretti as a result of really fine work, though a long stop by the Newman Haas crew. Al Unser Jr. over the top of the hill, and there is Michael. Michael retains the lead, and boy, is he looking great today.
He is looking great, but now another race starts because all the pit stops are over. All the problems they have that could come in the pits are over. Now it's a run to the finish.
It is a sprint to the finish of the race and the finish of the IndyCar season with Michael Andretti in front. Willie Ribbs lined up just behind Danny Sullivan. Ribbs is running in 13th place. In a lot of ways, this is Willie's hometown track. He lives San Jose, not that far north of here. Not a battle for position, but Willie's learning a little bit from Sullivan as he works around this course. Of course, the question is what will happen to Willie's team at the conclusion of the season. It's a great opportunity for some sponsorship. Derek Walker has been desperately looking, but as yet they do not have a game plan for next year.
And Derek Walker has shown time and time again just how good his small, closely knit team is, operating on a budget that most people could not even do a couple of races on. Walker managed the whole season just about.
With the pit stops, what should be the last stops of the race, Michael Andretti leads. Al Unser Jr. came out in second. Mario third, and Emerson Fittipaldi in fourth. For an update on Fittipaldi's situation, here's Gary Gerould.
Just a quick follow-up, Paul. They, in fact, ensured that his harnesses and his seat belts, everything was intact. That was not what somebody had seen flopping around. They did not renew the radio contact, so it continues to be an ongoing problem as far as communication, but rest assured he is secure in the cockpit.
Of course, in reality, with radio communication at this point in the race in the year, 62 laps complete in an 84-lap race, the final stop's done, there is no reason for Fittipaldi in the pits to have communication.
Well, that's right, and if the team need to give him information, of course, they revert to the old faithful, the pit board.
Al Unser Jr. comes inside Roberto Guerrero. As he comes through traffic, Al Unser Jr. continues to run in second. Jeff Andretti just ahead of him. Nice little run of traffic here. Makes for some great racing, not necessarily for position. That's one of the great things when you come to a track like this as a spectator. You can see so far. Look at John Andretti as he comes inside Guerrero as well at the top of the hill. There is so much that you can see. There are high hills here. The crowd, look at them there. They're up on the hills. They've got great view. We went up to the top of the hill, Derek, today, and you can see about 7 turns from the top of one.
There are some fantastic vantage points on this racetrack here at Laguna Seca. Quick shot of Guerrero there. We haven't seen him today. Obviously made contact with somebody and lost that right front wing. But Al Unser Jr. needs a bit of a break here in traffic. He needs help. He needs Michael to be slowed down, and he needs to slice through that traffic if he's going to cut into this now 9-second deficit from first to second.
Exactly 9.32 seconds. And how can we tell you something like that? Because there's a marvelous system that's in effect now in the Indy cars using the wizardry of computers and electronics. The EDS people have created a whole new scoring system that has really been tested throughout the year, but it is now fully operational. Scoring these 27 cars can be confusing. Let's take a look how they keep track of the cars during the race.
With the new EDS timing and scoring system that's been implemented at virtually all of the IndyCar tracks this year, every car carries one of these transmitter units down on the lower left side pod adjacent to the cockpit. When the car crosses over antennae that have been buried in the racing surface, this little transmitter sends a signal to a computer in the timing scoring tower. It tells officials that this car has completed another lap, that it's in the pits, where it stands at any time in the race. Now, prior to the start of the race, one of the cart officials will take this little unit right here. It's a transmission tester. He does two things. He passes this rod underneath that transmitter. He sees number 31 here. He looks up next to the roll bar, sees the EDS decal with the number 31, and he knows that the right transmitter has been installed in this car for Ted Prappis. Then he'll push another switch here, and he'll check the battery strength to make certain that there's enough power being emitted by this transmitter so that this car will continually be scored throughout the length of the event. It's simple, efficient technology, now a part of every IndyCar event.
With Michael Andretti as he flashes over the start-finish line.
You can hear him change gear. Heavy braking, and he goes from 6th to 3rd gear, just one change. He goes to 4th, right there, stays in 4th. Now he changed to 5th gear. No, he's got traffic, so he didn't bother, but he changed right after he passes this car. One down change again. That's a way to save fuel. Rather than go down through all the gears, blipping the engine, they do it just one time and select the gear you want. That's what they call short shifting. Now this is the uphill rise in 5th gear. Goes to 6th. Now he does 2 shifts there because he needs 2nd gear at the top of the hill. Now here's the downhill run. Dab the throttle. Now we'll change gear again. Holds 5th gear here. Now listen to the heavy braking here. Sometimes you hear the engine begin to stutter as the brakes grab those rear wheels.
And there's a lap on Laguna Seca, about 108 miles an hour average speed there. We take a look after 60 laps, the full field rundown. While we do this, we want to say hi and best wishes to Gary Rothman, who is normally our director on these shows and is recovering from a severe illness, has been most of this year. We certainly wish you the best, Gary. Wish you were here. And speaking of directors, I know one of them, the man in the truck now, Don Olmeyer, was keeping track of that lap, because with the courtesy of the Jim Russell Driving School, Don and I and a little group going to come out here tomorrow and be part of that school. I'm sure we're trying to get a leg up, try to find out what all the shift points are. You haven't been helping anybody, have you?
No, what's it called? The Ego Day?
Ego Day. That's exactly what it is. And I plan to win it, by the way. Just Michael Andretti still out in front, 9.2 seconds ahead of Al Unser Jr. And once again, for Al Unser Jr., this is probably the most significant drive of the year, because if he can win this race, he can move to second in the point standings, displacing Bobby Rahal, who was already out of the race. That's worth $100,000 in PPG point money at the banquet to be held at the end of the season in Houston, Texas.
Now here's a great picture that emphasizes Emerson's frustration. Again, he catches Mario. The car is faster, but he can't get by. That's why he was so furious at losing those positions earlier, and we saw that when he was in the pit lane. Furious.
Two great road racing masters, 2 former world champions. Fittipaldi with 2 titles, Mario Andretti with a single title, and they know their road racing perfectly. It's fun to watch these two as they maneuver around this circuit, battling for 3rd place. Let's get an update on the pit situation. Here's Jan Vigas.
Thank you, Paul. Remember, we watched the pit stops and we saw it appeared anyway as though Al Unser Jr. made a quicker pit stop than did Michael Andretti, but yet out on the racetrack it seemed as though he lost ground. It turns out that when he came into the pits, he got held up by a slower car and could not get into the pits as quickly as he would like. And we noticed over the last couple laps he also got held up by Arie Luyendyk, and Rick Gallis was screaming at the kart officials to go up to Luyendyk's pit to tell him to get out of the way so they could go after Michael.
And we've seen more and more this year, as Jan Vikas has pointed out to us, especially here in Elkhart, Lake Wisconsin, just how critical picking the right pit position is. Of course, the pit position is determined by your qualifying position in the race previous.
That's right. And we mentioned earlier, and Jan touched on it again, Unser Jr. needs some brakes in traffic, and he's not getting those brakes at the moment.
We watch Al Unser Jr., car number 1. But for the last race of the season, the defending PPG champion, but of course already that mantle being transferred to Michael Andretti unofficially, and there he is. That's the interval from 1st to 2nd place. It figures at 10.5 seconds, as Michael Andretti is having a brilliant drive here today, already picking up the extra point for leading the most laps to add to his point for the pole, and now looks for the win. Laguna Seca, Mario Andretti threads his way through traffic with Emerson Fittipaldi right behind us. That fight continues, and look at Emerson. He ducks inside Tony Bettenhausen, trying not to get trapped by that traffic as well. But it gave Mario Andretti just a little bit of breathing room.
Little bit of breathing room. That's what you need when you're not quite as fast as the guy behind you. The ideal situation is to trap the guy that's following you. Go by into a corner and make sure that the follower, in this case Emerson, does not get by on the way to the apex of a corner.
Update on Eddie Cheever. Let's go down to Gary Gerald.
Tom Anderson, the team manager, and the crew watching the telemetry intently, and we call your attention to the hat that he's wearing, Paul. It's one of these hats that I've got in my hand here. It's for the Minnesota Twins in the World Series. Keep in mind that Target and Scotch, the prime sponsors on this car, are based in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Chip Ganassi, of course, is out of Pittsburgh. Pirates didn't get to the World Series. A lot of rooting going on for the Twins down here.
A lot of internal trouble during the week within the team itself, too. Eddie Cheever completing his run. There's the hat.
Mind you, our people are all from Atlanta, the Tomahawk Chop, all the people that work for our television crew here.
We've been fighting a lot of baseball throughout this week here. It's been a wonderful week at Laguna Seca. You know, and Derek, as we come now to the end of the season and we continue to watch the battle between Mario and Emerson Fittipaldi, when the racing stops, the politics almost always starts in the Indy cars through the winter. It seems like idle hands are the devil's playground. But in this year, a lot of special consideration. Tony George, the president of the Indianapolis Speedway, was approached early in the year by Bill Stokan, the chairman of CART, to suggest we have to figure out a way to get together. The two of them have been working very hard on that. And there is, of course, a banquet, the final banquet, which will pay homage to Michael Andretti on the 5th of November in Houston, Texas. And then the next day, the board will meet and Tony George will make his presentation of what he has in mind for the Indy cars. And what is being suggested, though we've not heard it directly from Tony, is a smaller board, much smaller board, maybe as few as 5 people, and then some realignment of the organization so that there is a continuous season, the same sanctioning body, whatever its name will be, the IndyCar Racing Series, whatever, right through Indianapolis and everything else, and not the split that there has been for some time.
There's no doubt the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is the biggest event in the world, and Tony George does have a lot of power. There's no smoke without fire. There is a problem that has to be solved. How it happens, I don't know. You'll never get the ideal situation for everybody.
Part of the idea in changing the board, though, is to move from a group totally of owners. Look at John Andretti as he waves the other car. Come on, pass, Mario. But this board would be owners, representative of the tracks, promoters, and the sponsors. The only person left out of that tripod would be the fans themselves, who have a tremendous investment in the sport. They're trying to find a way to make the sport more responsive to the fans. So there's John Andretti. Those decisions will be made on the 6th of November, or at least be discussed. Decisions may be long time in coming. Michael Andretti, no decision here. He's the leader. Ari Leyendijk, 8th place. Still a car that looks for sponsorship, the Granatelli organization, but they've had a tremendous year. 2 separate wins for Ari Leyendijk thus far this win. He went much of this 91 season without any primary sponsor at all. And he says if Vince Granatelli can come up with a sponsor, Vince and Ari will be together next year.
Keep the same group of people together. I think it's a real group of people. Morris Nunn as the engineer, Peter Parrott as the team manager, and of course Vince overseeing the operation. I think we've had a great year together, and I think by staying together longer as a group, we can be more successful.
So Ari Leyendijk hoping that that team will stay together over this, and it is really a good group. Morris Nunn, Peter Parrott are 2 of the best. Vince Granatelli overseeing the operation as the owner.
The real key about keeping successful people together is there's a little bit of harmony that comes into a team when they're successful, and it's great to carry that on, because if they split this team up, it takes a long time to get the correct group of people together again.
The Pioneer Race recap at the conclusion of 70 laps. We're working lap 72 right now. Michael Andretti has led right from the green flag all the way through. We've had no full course caution, so we've had a number of incidents isolated to the corner areas only. 7 cars out of the race. Interesting announcement made here at Laguna Seca this weekend, and that is for a new racetrack at Moreno Valley, California, Riverside County. Frank Archero working on that project, and they're hoping to have a whole new race facility going in that area about 65 miles east of Los Angeles very, very soon in the next couple of years. Well, how do they feel in the Newman Haas pits as they watch this man, Michael Andretti, move around? Gary Gerald is with co-owner Paul Newman.
Yes, indeed, and take a look. We were talking about World Series hats. I want you to look at the hat that's on the head now of Paul Newman, 1991 PPG IndyCar champion. Congratulations, Paul. I know that this is a special day and a special moment.
Yeah, it's been a good day. It's been a good day all the way around.
When you look back on this season, everybody has high expectations. Did you ever think, along with Carl Haas, that this might be a year in which Michael Andretti might win 8 times, set something like 15 records along the way?
No, it's just extraordinary. I mean, if you look at the number of laps that he led as compared to the nearest competitor, he's led almost as many laps as everybody else on the season has led, and it's 43.5%. In fact, it may go up as a result of this race much more. It's extraordinary.
And as a man who has been in the cockpit so many times, as a man who's been in the cockpit yourself, you know the elation that Michael is now feeling, the pressure that's gone off his shoulders earlier this afternoon. It must be marvelous.
Well, it's comforting.
All right, Paul Newman. Paul?
I got to tell you, he's playing the movie star role right now, trying to be cool. But I saw him after the challenge yesterday. He was driving out in his car, and he waved at me, and he was jumping up and down with excitement. Paul Newman really really gets into it. Fittipaldi still in pursuit of Mario Andretti as he works underneath Leyendijk. Not a fight for position, of course, but it gives you some idea of just how fast they are traveling, because Leyendijk runs in 8th place while this battle continues between Mario and Fittipaldi for 3rd place. The leader is Michael Andretti. Al Unser Jr. is 12 seconds back. A little Al needs the win if he can move into 2nd in the points fight. Exchanges on the pit road as we watch Michael Andretti move his way around this track, completing 74 laps. We're now 10 laps from the end of this run. Rick Mears moved up into 5th place, or moved to 5th place from 3rd as a result of the stop that they had, and Mario was able to move up into 3rd place from 5th as he made his final stop. Emerson Fittipaldi stayed in 4th position as they made their final stop of the year. Michael Andretti 12 seconds out in front of Al Unser Jr. The fight is for 3rd place, and this is it. Mario Andretti holding off Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi, who was a factor in the early part of the race, running in 2nd place behind Michael until he had his problems in the cockpit. Still an unknown problem, but he finally got it fixed himself, but it dropped him back into this 4th position to fight with Mario. Let's go down to the pits once again. Here's Jan Vikas.
Well, Paul, I have good news and I have bad news for Scott Pruitt. The good news is he's running as fast right now as Michael Andretti, but the bad news is he's lost 3rd gear. Believe it or not, that True Sports car is working so well that he's able to run those kind of lap times, and they're reeling in Eddie Cheever at about a 2nd a lap.
Without 1 gear, Derek Daly.
Well, I would have to say that maybe Michael could run faster, because there's no doubt if you have all the gears, you can go a little bit faster. Remember, Michael is way out in front, in control of this race, running as fast as he needs to, because Al Unser Jr. is still 12, just over 12 seconds behind him.
Mario Andretti runs in 3rd place. Already knows that his son is the champion. They've handed the hats out in the pits, but Gary Gerald is there.
Yes, indeed, and so is artist Don Evenson. We see him sketching in beautiful color here in the back of one of the scoring stands, Mario's car and his crew. A champion and a champion's family attracting a tremendous amount of attention here. Boy, you can feel it building. It's soon going to be party time down here, Paul.
Like the Unzers before them, the Andrettis now have father and son as champions, but the fight is not over, as Mario is still being hard pressed by Fittipaldi. They close up behind traffic. That's Scott Goodyear in the 15 car just ahead. And once again, an opportunity for Fittipaldi. It looks like Goodyear is suffering some overheating problems as well. A bit of vapor showing at the back of his car.
Vapor or steam or oil or something coming from Goodyear's car. Mario, yes, he wants to duck out as fast as possible. Don't get oil or any fluids on that visor. Emerson will do the same thing. But look, Goodyear moves to the outside, knows it's a battle that he's not concerned with or involved in, so he moves aside, lets them get on with their battle.
Very warm here on the Pacific coast of California at Monterey Bay. Temperatures expected to go into the 90s throughout the afternoon. It's been warm the past couple of days here, and of course it may have figured into 4 cars reporting out of this race as a result of overheating. The most notable among those is Bobby Rahal, who was in the fight for the championship until the car overheated, the oil pressure dropped, and he pulled into the pits. Let's go down to the pits once again, and Jan Vikas.
What we have here, Paul, is we have a couple of crew members that have high sims get well soon. One of the team members got injured, and he's in the hospital now recovering, and we're hoping all the crew here hopes that he gets well, and of course they're celebrating a championship.
A whole new form of messaging. John Andretti comes into the pits in and out. No indication of what that stop might have been for. John Andretti has been struggling throughout the day and sits down in 19th place right now, but still, this is one of my favorite camera views. This and that out the back of the rear of the car. Hiro Matsushita in the pits as well with 7 laps to go. Is this indicative that others may have to stop, Derek Daly?
I don't think so. I think Matsushita is out of sync with the pit stops because of his problems earlier on. But I think I'd like to mention, too, is Scott Goodyear. We saw him move over. Remember, he's in his own private battle with Cor Oyster and Tony Bettenhouse's Amex car. So Goodyear does not actually want to lose too much time himself, although he does want to move over and let these guys get on with their battle.
Some conflicting interests. You don't want to block the leaders, while at the same time, you don't want to give up any position at all in your fight for the leadership. Watching so carefully, hoping for a win now, Carl Haas and Paul Newman. Haas is always so quiet. He doesn't involve himself that much in the operation of the team once the race begins. He lets the crew take over and do their job and just watches so quietly from the starter stand. Al Unser Jr. is now up behind Willie T. Ribbs. Al Unser Jr. looking for a second place and tries to find racing room alongside Willie T. Ribbs. What about any possible pit stops by any of the leaders? Gary Gerald, you have an update?
Well, Paul, we get caught up in this celebration mode that's starting to build down here in the pits, and we sometimes have to check on those things because all the chiefs ahead of this race said this will be one of those fuel-conscious races. But the word from the Michael Andretti pit is they're ahead of their schedule. They don't anticipate any problems with fuel. So I don't think we're going to see any last-lap dramatics such as we did in our last event 2 weeks ago at Nazareth.
Al Unser Jr. gets his way past Willie T. Ribbs, continues his pursuit of Michael Andretti, but he is 11.5 seconds behind Michael, who has led right from the green flag and picked up the championship. In Laguna Seca as Fittipaldi closes in right behind Mario Andretti. The continuing fight for third place, and now very definitely Fittipaldi is there and trying for all he's worth. 79 laps are complete, 5 laps to go in this run. Fittipaldi knows if he's going to make the move, it must be now. It's the battle for third place, and it does continue.
And this is the rostrum position. 3 drivers get to stand on the rostrum and shake champagne, and that is a very important way to gauge how your day went. Mario has the champagne bottle at the moment, but Emerson wants that bottle of bubbly.
For Michael Andretti, it would seem only a mechanical failure could take this race away from him, but we only have to trace back as far as the last corner in yesterday's race, the Marlboro Challenge, when suddenly a mechanical failure snatched the race in the last corner away from Rick Mears and handed it over to Michael Andretti. I'm sure while they're celebrating a little bit, they have to be thinking in the Andretti pits, geez, it's gone so well for so many races. I wonder when the lightning might strike.
Well, that's the one thing Michael was scared about yesterday, but look at this now. Emerson ducks down the inside.
Fittipaldi looks for position. He tries to get inside Mario. He darts inside, he darts outside, and now they come down into the corner, but other traffic is there, and that affects the turn. But Fittipaldi still stays stuck to the back of Mario Andretti's car and continues the chase.
Fittipaldi is faster, but I'll guarantee you Mario will make that car as wide as possible. He will take the inside line whenever possible. Defensive driving. Emerson will have the hardest job to do, because I doubt on this racetrack if you can go around the outside anywhere.
Fittipaldi comes off a very fast fourth corner, a little bit wider than Mario Andretti, and now again he darts out. I suspect part of what he's doing is just trying to force air through the coolers on those cars and stay away from Mario's turbulence.
Exactly. Very warm here today. You get right up behind somebody, you do not get clean air in through your radiators to cool the water, therefore the engine overheats. So he ducks out, nice fresh air, cools it down and ducks back in again. But Emerson under braking is where this Penske seems to be most impressive.
Michael Andretti is cruising, now completing 81 laps, 3 to go. The fight continues for third place. Fittipaldi trying to catch up to Mario Andretti. They have Willie Ribbs in the 10 car just in front of them. Of course, Willie doesn't want to give anything up. Hometown crowd from San Jose all down here to cheer him on. But still, very wisely, he gives the racing line over to Mario and then to Fittipaldi.
Little twitch by Emerson under very heavy and hard braking there at turn 2. Didn't lose anything. Willie T. Ribbs did move aside. That was good. I like to see that. Again, you just catch a corner in the top corner of the screen there. Emerson still twitching, exiting these corners.
So Mario Andretti battles for this third place. Winless again this season, but he has to be ecstatic that his son has picked up the championship. And now if he can only hold off Fittipaldi, he will have a fine finish, third place this year. It does not appear that Michael Andretti has any challenge. Mike Groff off into the gravel pit. The A.J. Foyt owned car. Groff, who had a pretty good day, and see some fluid squirting there at the back. I think the engine may have locked and put him off.
Could have. That's usually a sign again of an overheating engine, but sometimes when you stop these engines dead like they have here when he's in the gravel trap, it can do that sometimes a little bit like, you know, boiling over.
Mike Groff, of course, hoping that he can convince AJ that this ought to be an office that he keeps for next season as well. No specific deal announced there yet. Al Unser Jr., second place, 13.2 seconds back behind this man, Michael Andretti. And for Michael, the season has about 4 miles to go. For Shelley Unser, well, she doesn't know what her husband is going to be capable of doing, but she doubts that he'll be able to pick the lead away from Michael. Ed Nathman watches his driver, Michael Andretti, run in the lead where he has been right from the green flag. You ride with him now, up at the top of the corkscrew.
Stranger things have happened in racing than a leader stops on the last lap. This year, almost everything bad has happened to other people. That's what happens when you get on a roll, particularly a championship roll. So all the bad luck seemed to have gone up and down the pit lane and missed Michael Andretti most of this year.
The momentum has been wonderful for Michael, but as he flashes across the line, he takes a look at the white flag, telling him there is one more lap left in this, your championship season, Michael Andretti.
Traffic ahead of him, but he has plenty of time to take his time, take the right line, whatever he wants to do. The one thing he'll watch is where Al Unser Jr. is, and he's still almost 12 seconds behind.
The 9th time that a kart race has been led flag to flag if Michael can only finish this lap. 7 times it has been done by Andretti's, 4 times by Mario, and now 3 by Michael, if he can only make it to the checkered flag. But let's not forget yesterday when he took the win on the last corner.
Unbelievable circumstances. Michael already set a record with his 7 wins earlier, now about to push that figure up even further to possibly 8 wins in one season. Phenomenal.
Mario still trying to hold on to that podium position and keep 3rd place away from Emerson Fittipaldi. Hiro Matsushita just ahead of them, and Mario carefully alongside Matsushita. Fittipaldi climbing up behind him now.
It's going to be very difficult for Emerson to do anything about it now.
Michael Andretti, the 11th and final turn, the last turn of the racing season. And as the new champion, Michael Andretti takes Nick Fedoro's checkered flag. He takes the season, he takes the race. Michael Andretti, with an incredible record-breaking year, wins the title now by 34 points in his 22nd career victory, which puts him 11th on the all-time list. And they're breaking out the champagne in the Michael Andretti pits. The racing season is complete, and Michael Andretti is the champion.
And everybody there deserves every handshake. Oh, look at the timing and scoring he even gets to share. But they deserve every accolade. We see Kenny there, their tire man. They deserve everything. They've done a super job.
The dream of childhood has now been realized for Michael Andretti of Nazareth, Pennsylvania. He follows his father. Michael has captured, after 3 times finishing 2nd, his first of his 3 life's goals. The PPG Cup is his. He is, in fact, the champion. But 2 other challenges still await this man, Michael Andretti. A Formula One title like his father's. That change could come in 1993. And, of course, the Indianapolis 500, a title that has been so elusive for the Andretti name. For now, though, Michael Andretti is happy. He is the champion, a major achievement in Michael's racing career.
Michael is undoubtedly the fastest man in IndyCar racing, and is only right and fitting that he should win the championship, fighting hard all the way, winning it from the front with sheer speed and ability and raw talent, and match that to a team and a team owner that gives him the environment and the machinery and the people that he needs. It gels together, and it brings a driver of Michael's talent right to the top. Enjoy the moment.
And breaking Danny Sullivan's race record of 103.5 miles an hour, Michael Andretti averaged 103.604. Look at his eyes, bright with happiness. Michael Andretti, one of the more polite drivers in racing, has won here at Laguna Seca, and in doing so, he has taken the championship. Michael Andretti has earned the PPG Cup. As he climbs out of his car, the new champion, we'll be back to talk with him right after these messages. Michael Andretti takes a cool drink of water. He is the champion. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
It's bedlam down here, as you might well expect. Michael, this is the moment. This is the moment that you've dreamed about, that you've waited for so very, very long, and you end up not only with a championship, but with another race win.
Oh, thank God. I mean, you don't know how long I prayed for this one. It's just fantastic. I just can't believe it. I mean, it's too overwhelming. And what a weekend. I mean, winning, you know, the Marlboro Challenge and the race and the championship. Oh, God, I can't believe it.
Nobody has ever had a season quite like this. A record 8 victories now, and of course the extra money that came yesterday in this race today. Were there any times when you really had to sweat it out out at all, other than early in the start of the race?
Just with Emerson there.
It's cold, it's wet. How does it taste?
Just with Emerson there, you know, he was really putting the pressure on. Then when he went out, it was just a matter of keeping it on the racetrack. And, you know, the car ran perfect. Kmart Havoline guys did a perfect job in the pits. I mean, it was just a perfect day.
What was the feeling when they told you that there were problems for Bobby Rahal and that the championship, in fact, was yours?
I said, well, let's go for it then. Let's try to get the race, and then we'll celebrate later. And, you know, we were able to do it. It's great.
And you look to your right, and you look at the hat that your dad has on, Michael Andretti, 1991 PPG IndyCar champion. Mario, you've been in this scenario in Formula One, in Indy cars, and now you see your son share this moment. I know that it's got to be a lot of emotion inside you and a very special time.
I tell you, special is really the way to describe it, because I tell you, it's been tremendous amount of pressure, and then watching Michael sort of claw his way up the championship ladder, you know, throughout the year. I think, you know, the team just rallied behind him. We have a wonderful team behind us, and I tell you, we're happy, our sponsors are happy, and I think our life will go on very well in our team for next year.
Late in this race, you and Emerson, it was kind of like the old Formula One days. You guys were scrawling and crutching and banging almost yourself.
Yeah, I was slipping and sliding. I was really loose, you know, in the back, and come up on traffic, get blocked, and there was Emerson, and, you know, I tried to defend myself. It was toward the end of the, you know, the end of the race, and I'm sure he understands.
Now, you get to go to the victory podium and stand alongside your son, who is the champion of 1991.
Proud moment, believe me. It's the only way I can say it.
Thank you very much, Mario. Congratulations again, Michael. It's going to be quite a celebration, I'm sure.
Big party tonight. Big party tonight.
All right, let's go to Jan Beekes.
We're here with Al Unser Jr. Al, it's a hot day. You worked hard, but you couldn't quite get Michael.
No, I tell you, he had him hooked up all weekend long. He won the Marlboro Challenge yesterday and sat on the pole, and you know, he did a great job. His team did a great job, and congratulations to them for today and the championship.
You guys got out in and out of the pits real quick today, though, but just not the speed on the track. Was the car not quite hooked up the way you wanted?
Yeah, we haven't been hooked up all weekend, and today is the best the race car's been all weekend, and so. You know, we could match him, but we couldn't outrun him. So.
Do you have any message for Michael? You turning the championship over to him now? Any words? What it's like carrying that championship for a whole season the way you did?
No. Let him. He'll learn and find out. So.
Thank you, Al.
Thanks.
The second straight year a second-generation driver has won the PPG Cup, and Michael Andretti overcame a 34-point deficit, won 8 of the last 13 races, and won the title by the same 34 points. We'll be back with more from Laguna Seca as we celebrate with Michael Andretti. So the crash of the surf in Monterey Bay now replaces the roar of the Indy cars. The season is complete. Michael Andretti has won the race and the championship. On his way to the championship, Michael Andretti led 975 laps in the 91 season. The next best was Al Unser Jr. with 277. And of course, the victory here today, flag to flag. 3,764 miles are now complete. The racing season is done. Another season for the Indy cars has come to an end. And like so many more before it, it has been a combination of events that follows every mile. Dreams deferred and fulfilled. For Michael Andretti, the year-long battle is rewarded with a championship. For the rest, there is now a winter ahead to plan. We congratulate the new champion and his crew and his supporters. Coverage of the IndyCars is a labor of love for this television crew. We hope you have enjoyed it with us. So now, IndyCar fans can sit back and talk of this record-breaking season and dream of next year. I'm Paul Page for Derek Daly, Gary Gerald, and Jan Beekes. We'll see you next season.